Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. Today, I will officially open this meeting. And with that, Committee Secretary, will you please take the roll?
Assemblywoman Dickman. Here. Assemblyman Frierson. Here. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Here. Assemblywoman Howdegi. Here. Assemblyman Levitt. Here. Assemblyman Matthews. Here. Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Here. Assemblywoman Thomas. Here. Assemblywoman Torres. Here. Chair Miller.
Here. And with that, we have a quorum. I would just like to address just a few housekeeping issues. We will take up to 30 minutes of public comment at the end of the agenda. And we also ask that everyone limits their public comment to 2 minutes per speaker, and that would include anyone testifying on any bill in any position. Also that please maintain your mask on while we are here in the room. Today we will hear 2 bills. This week is unofficially referred to as Senator Spearman Week in Legislative Operations and Elections because I believe she is actually presenting all 4 bills that we will hear this week. So with that, the first bill that we have, I will open the hearing on SJR 11, which is presented by Senator Spearman, and it urges Congress to ratify the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. So Senator Spearman, it's a pleasure to see you, and please proceed when you're ready.
So thank you, Madam Chair. I had to pull up 11 because I had 5 up. But anyway, thank you for the honor. You honor me. I don't know about if I deserve a week, but thank you anyway. Thank you for hearing the bill. For the record, I am Pat Spearman, and I represent Senate District 1 in Clark County, and I'm here to present Senate Joint Resolution number 11. Hold on a moment. Here we go. Some of you may be asking, what is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women? For those of you who do not know, this is an international human rights treaty that promotes gender equity, CEDAW for short. It was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 1979 and formally instituted in 1981. As a note, in SJR 11 and by the UN Women, the United Nations Entity for Gender Equality and the Empowerment of Women, CEDAW requires the elimination of discrimination against women in all forms, including in the areas of economic development, health, safety, and education. Within its first 10 years, CEDAW was ratified by nearly 100 countries. And to date, 189 countries have ratified CEDAW. 6 countries, including Iran, Sudan, and Somalia, have taken no action to ratify or sign CEDAW. And 2 countries, Palau, a small island nation in the Western Pacific, and the United States have signed the convention without ratifying it. So this begs the question, how is it that over 97% of the countries in the world have ratified CEDAW and the United States has not? After all, the tenets of CEDAW are based on the very issues for which we have been fighting for decades in this country. According to Thought Company, the United States was one of the first signatories of CEDAW when it was adopted by the United Nations in 1979. A year later, President Jimmy Carter signed the treaty and sent it to the U.S. Senate for ratification. Unfortunately, Carter, in the final year of his presidency, did not have the political leverage to get senators to act on the measure. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which is charged with ratifying treaties and international agreements, has debated CEDAW 5 times since 1980. In 1994, for instance, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee held hearings on CEDAW and recommended it be ratified. But efforts to block its ratification proved successful. Similar debates in 2002, and 2010 also failed to advance the treaty. So why is Senate Joint Resolution 11 so important? Members of the committee, you have heard this for years, but I will say it again, and it is spelled out explicitly in SJR 11. We have a persistent and egregious wage gap in this country. Overall, women are paid 82 cents, which amounts to an annual gender wage gap of $10,157. It is even worse for African American women.
Do you mind?
ma'am.
The screen was frozen just for a moment, so maybe you want to back up a few statements because you froze and we didn't catch that?
Sure. What did you hear last?
Oh, when you started on like the wage disparity? Thank
Got
you.
it. Okay, so I will start with that. Overall, women are paid 82 cents for every dollar paid to men, which amounts to an annual gender wage gap of $10,157. It is even worse for African American women who typically earn 63 cents, Native American women who are paid 60 cents, and Hispanic or Latino women who earn just 55 cents for every dollar paid to white or non-Hispanic men. And I'd like to note, Madam Chair, that in April we celebrated Pay Equity Day, but that was only for white women. Black women will not see Pay Equity Day until August, and Latina women will not see Pay Equity Day until October. These facts and figures represent the consequences of sexism and the consistent devaluing of women, and particularly women who are Black, Indigenous, and other persons of color, or BIPOC. We know for a fact that the gender wage gap persists regardless of industry, occupation, and educational level. And there are numerous causes, including discrimination and bias. Article 3 of CEDAW addresses gender equality directly by employing ratified parties to take all appropriate measures, including legislation to ensure the full development and advancement of women, for the purpose of guaranteeing them the exercise and enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms on a basis of equality with men. Senate Joint Resolution 11 addresses other critical concerns, including violence against women, gross inequities in healthcare services and outcomes, and notable challenges in educational pursuits. Even during the current coronavirus disease of 2019 or COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen firsthand that women, the LGBTQ community, gender minorities, the BIPOC community, and other marginalized groups have borne the brunt of the pandemic's worst impacts. Since the start of the pandemic, women have lost more jobs than men, which is eliminating recent gains made by women in the workplace. Moreover, according to the UN policy brief on the impact of COVID-19 on women across every sphere, from health to the economy, security to social protections, the impact of COVID-19 are exacerbated for women and girls simply by virtue of their sex. The brief notes that the pandemic has disproportionately impacted women economically, worsened healthcare outcomes, and led to increased gender-based violence. Madam Chair and members of the committee, as I have said before, we all must persist for equality. We must persist in improving human dignity and human rights. We must persist against systemic racism and gender discrimination and racial discrimination that has perpetuated multi-generational poverty, educational and economic hardships, and health adversities. It includes environmental deterioration. These problems go beyond just the borders of our country, and nearly all countries have ratified CEDAW in their efforts to address these ongoing concerns. Frankly, I'm baffled and a bit stunned that the United States has not taken the very simple step to ratify CEDAW. For these reasons and others that are highlighted in SJR 11, I urge your support and approval of this resolution. Let's take this fight to the U.S. Senate, where they have the power and ability to once and for all ratify the United Nations Convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. And Madam Chair, if I might just say, some people believe that this is a way to erase gender roles.
Senator, you are frozen again.
I disagree. This discrimination against women.
Senator, you froze again. So the last statement we heard was that some people believe this is to erase gender roles. So if you could start there again.
Okay. Can you hear me and see
Now we can, Senator. Oh, you're freezing again.
me?
Okay, Senator, we see you well now, but you froze up on us a few times. The last statement we heard was that some people consider this a way to erase gender roles. Broadcasting, can we get some assistance? Is there something that we can do to assist the senator?
Yes, Chair. It looks like the senator has disconnected. We will get somebody in there to help her right away.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. It could be a bandwidth issue. So if you have the background going, if you just leave your video off, we should be able to hear you for the rest of this. Or you can leave your video on and we can have you call in on your phone.
I'll leave the video off for now and only turn it on if I need to.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm not sure if you heard what I said, but I'm trying to. I wanted to elucidate a couple of things that you may hear in terms of rebuttal, in terms of what CEDAW does. Simply put, CEDAW seeks to eliminate all forms of discrimination against women. That is economic, that is educational, that is violence against women. It is really about elevating the status of women around the world to a place of equality and equity commensurate to people of the male gender. That's all it does. It doesn't do anything else. That's all that it does. Very similar to the ERA. It's really about equality and equity, period. And with that, Madam Chair and committee members, I will answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Senator. Committee members, do we have any questions? Not seeing any questions, I will open up the testimony for those who would like to testify in support of SJR 11. So what I would do is I will invite those who are physically in the room to come forward first if you'd like to testify on SJR 11. This will give individuals who are calling in on the phones an opportunity to call and log in. Again, I just want to remind everyone that testimonies are limited to 2 minutes per person, and we ask that you state and spell your name clearly for the record so that we have an accurate account. And when you are ready, please begin.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. It's really nice to be here in person. For the record, my name is Tess Opferman. I am speaking on behalf of the Nevada Women's Lobby. Day in and day out at the Nevada Legislature, we hear bills about sexual assault, domestic violence, human trafficking, hate crimes, and pay inequality. Our legislators, you all, are working hard to pass policy to help address these inequalities. Inequality for women of color, inequality for women addressing their gender identity and sexual orientation, inequality for women in the workplace. But we must not be complacent. It is time we pass a declarative measure to urge Congress to ratify the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Please take this measure by supporting SJR 11 and supporting women in our state. Thank you to Senator Spearman for your ongoing support and passion and for your strong leadership. The Women's Lobby asks for your support today on this measure, and we thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to come forward? Okay, with that, broadcasting, can you open the lines?
To testify in support on SJR 11, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 938, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Ariel Edwards, ARIELLEEDWARDS, on behalf of the City of North Las Vegas. The City of North Las Vegas offers support for SJR 11. There is a letter of support on Nellis written by our Chief of Staff, Rebecca Gibson, for the committee's consideration. Again, the city thanks Senator Spearman for bringing this bill forward and urges the support and passage of SJR 11. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Chair, the testimony line is open and working. However, we have no more callers in support of SJR 11.
Okay, thank you. We will go ahead and close the line for anyone testifying in support of SJR 11 and open it up to, we'll start here physically in the room, anyone that would like to testify in opposition of SJR 11.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be with you. My name is Janine Hansen. I'm the state president of Nevada Families for Freedom. We oppose SJR 11, which endorses the United Nations CEDAW Convention. CEDAW was originally passed by the United Nations in 1979. It has never been ratified in the United States for many good reasons. The language in SJR 11 is deceptive and mostly refers to wages for women, but CEDAW covers many other issues. On the UN website regarding CEDAW, it states, the convention is the only human rights treaty which affirms that reproductive rights for women. CEDAW's committee in charge of compliance has interpreted Article 11 to mean approval of abortion and has pressured 44 nations to legalize or increase access to abortion. Any endorsement of CEDAW is an approval of abortion. Article 16 also orders a massive interference with U.S. laws, as well as with our federal-state balance of powers, obligating the federal government to take over all family law, including marriage, divorce, child custody, and marital property. When Edmund S. Muskie was Secretary of State under Democrat Jimmy Carter, he issued a memo stating that the treaty completely fails to take into account the division of authority between the state and federal governments in the United States. His memo also admitted that this treaty applies to private organizations and areas of personal conduct not covered by U.S. law. CEDAW sets us on a dangerous road, allowing unelected bureaucrats at the United Nations to interfere with the governance of the United States, as well as the state of Nevada. CEDAW degrades the chosen role of many women as mothers. For instance, when their committee criticized Ireland for promoting a stereotypical view of the role of women as in the home and as mothers. Belarus for such symbols as Mother's Day, and Slovenia because less than 30% of the children.
That was your 2 minutes?
Thank you. Under the age of 3.
Ms. Hansen, you know you are more than welcome to submit the rest of your comments in writing for
May I finish my sentence?
Your sentence.
Yes. Of age were in formal daycare, and I have submitted the rest online for the entire amount.
Oh,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here in the room that would like to testify in opposition? Okay, not seeing any. Broadcasting, can we open up the lines for those wishing to testify in opposition of SJR 11?
Anyone wishing to testify in opposition to SJR 11, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 105, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Chapman, Lynnchapman, State Vice President of Nevada Eagle Forum. We oppose SJR 11. Dr. Marty Nemko, acclaimed career expert and author, was interviewed by Money Watch. He gave 8 reasons why the concept that women are paid less than men is a myth. His primary source was the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Men choose more dangerous careers such as loggers and steel workers. Men work at higher paying fields by choice. According to the White House report in 2009, only 7% of female professionals were employed in the high paying computer and engineering fields, compared with 38% of male professionals. Men are more likely to work in uncomfortable, isolated, and undesirable locations. They also work longer hours. Men are willing to work weekends and evenings. Even within the same career category, men pursue high-stress and higher-paid areas of specialization, such as surgery, versus women who usually choose being a pediatrician. Unmarried women who have never had a child earn more than unmarried men, according to data compiled by the Census Bureau. Dr. Nemko said, quote, "This study leads to the unambiguous conclusion that the differences in the compensation of men and women are the result of a multitude of factors, and that the raw wage gap should not be used as a basis to justify corrective action. Indeed, there may be nothing to correct. The differences in raw wages may be almost entirely the result of the individual choices being made by both male and female workers. His position is when women make the same career choices as men, they earn the same amount as men. Please oppose SJR 11. Thank you."
Caller with the last 3 digits, 029. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Don Nelson. I'm from Sparks, Nevada. I represent Pro-Life League of Nevada. We often hear and read that CDAW, like other legislation, has nothing to do with abortion, but the lack of the word abortion is often a smokescreen. National Right to Life notes that the CDAW committee has explicitly held the nation should provide public funding of abortion, and has even criticized nations that have laws in place to allow medical professionals to opt out of providing abortions. In 2004, the Center for Reproductive Rights said that CDAW considers discrimination against women includes laws that have either the effect or the purpose of preventing a woman from exercising any of her rights or fundamental freedoms on a basis of equality with men. Laws that ban abortion have just that effect and that purpose. In 2002, National Right to Life says that in 2002, the European Parliament voted to adopt a sweeping report calling for removal of limitations to abortion by European Union members such as Ireland, Spain, and Portugal, and by nations then seeking membership. The report cited CEDAW as grounds for its assertion that there is an international legal framework under which all European nations should recognize abortion as a fundamental right. In the United States in 2002, then Chairman Joe Biden and Senate Foreign Relations Committee recognized that CEDAW would attack abortion laws by inserting certain language into a ratification resolution that CEDAW should not be used to create a right to abortion. If CEDAW were ratified by the United States, it would be used to assert an international obligation on the federal and state governments to provide public funding for abortion, to refrain from adopting or enforcing restrictions on partial birth abortions, to refrain from adopting or enforcing laws to protect the rights of parents with respect to their minor daughters, and to eliminate conscience protection laws
Sir,
and otherwise.
your 2 minutes is up. So
okay, and so thank you for your time. We ask you to oppose that JR 11.
Thank you.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 373. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Russo. That is BOBRUSSO. And I strongly oppose SJR 11. As an American who values the sovereignty of our nation, urging Congress to ratify the 1979 United Nations Convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women would set a new precedent in our nation to allow unelected global bureaucrats to decide what we can or cannot do in our own backyard, meaning our nation. Again, this is a dangerous step toward America losing its sovereignty. Another major concern I have is the connection of this UN convention to abortion by, quote, affirming the reproductive rights of women, end of quote. I believe that enforcing this convention in the United States could cost many lives of the innocent unborn. It could place an international law or obligation on the federal and state governments and override lawful limits on abortion in various states. And it could force citizens to fund abortion against their will or conscience. Passing SJR 11 could also jeopardize the right of parents to be involved in the decision of their daughters regarding abortion. In my opinion, young women, in most circumstances, are not mature enough to understand the ramifications or long-term trauma that they may encounter from getting an abortion. Parents must and should be involved in this life-impacting decision. The current opinion on the wage gap between men and women that is expounded in the media is misleading. Yes, men do earn more than women. The difference is due to life choices. According to economic researcher Rachel Gressler, she says, quote, the pay gap between men and women is a product of individual and family decisions, not a result of workplace discrimination, which has long been illegal.
Thank you, sir, but your 2 minutes are up. So if you have any additional comments. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chair, there are no more callers in opposition to SJR 11.
Okay, thank you. Then I will go ahead and close the line for, or the item for anyone testifying in opposition of SJR 11, and we'll open it for anyone testifying in neutral of SJR 11. So first, I'd like to open it up for anyone physically in the room here. Not seeing anyone come forward. If you could open up the broadcasting line for those that wish to testify in neutral of SJR 11.
Anyone wishing to testify in neutral on SJR 11, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers to testify in neutral on SJR 11.
Okay, thank you for that. And with that, I will go ahead and close the testimonies for SJR 11. And Senator Spearman would just like to ask you if you had any final remarks on SJR 11.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you for this opportunity. And I appreciate everyone who called in support and even those who were in opposition, because it certainly gave me something to think about. There is a glaring inconsistency when we start talking about the right to life, because children who are in the womb are innocent, but those who are innocent on death row would deserve to die. I'm also rather curious because in an effort to make sure that we tackle this pandemic, there was a mandate to wear masks, but people felt that there was the government didn't have the right to mandate them to wear masks, but they believe that the government has a right to mandate or to dictate reproductive services. We talk about women making more or making less, and there's irrefutable evidence that more women retire in poverty than men. And with respect to women choosing more, quote, dainty, and I don't think that was the word that you used, I think it was men choose more dangerous jobs. All of the jobs that people used to think that women couldn't do, construction, even astronauts, that sort of thing. Women are slowly breaking those types of barriers. So SJR 11 really is about stopping discrimination and torture and sex trafficking and other ways that women are devalued in our society. Nothing more, nothing less. And so for those who quote right to life, I certainly hope that they will vote in the affirmative if the question about abolishing the death penalty comes up. As I said before, I'm trying to reconcile the contradictions between when the government can tell you what to do and when the government cannot tell you what to do, and reconcile the inconsistency between life before birth and life when there's a question of the death penalty. So with that, thank you. Thank you, committee, for taking the time to listen to SJR 11.
Thank you, Senator. And before I close the hearing on SJR 11, and Senator, don't go anywhere because we're going to be right back to you soon. Before I close the hearing on SJR 11, we're going to take one final statement from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the opportunity to make the statement. I thank the senator for bringing the bill, and I thank the opposition and those that called in support. I think if you look at the legislative body in 2017, there were a much larger number of women sitting in the seats that were formerly held by mostly men. In 2019, we broke the ceiling here in Nevada. And in 2020, here we sit, the women majority in both houses. In our judiciary, we are the women majority. I hope that we as a country get to the point where jobs are not a man's job, a woman's job, male or female. They're just simply jobs. And anyone who's qualified to do those jobs can do those jobs. And those that were in the past seen as a woman's job, those occupations should be paid for the work that they're doing. And oftentimes those were nurses, teachers that were not being paid at the same rate that men were being paid. And we've seen as we've lived through this pandemic, those were the people that got us through it. Our counselors, our teachers, and our nurses, those so-called women's jobs. So when we look at employment, people should be paid equal pay for whatever job they do, no matter what gender they are. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. And with that, I will close the hearing on SJR 11. I will now open the hearing on SCR 5. Senator, you can't just give me SBs. I've practiced AB, SB. You give me all these letters. So I will open the hearing on SJR 5, which urges certain actions to address the public health crisis in Nevada. Senator, when you are ready, please begin.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Miller and committee. For the record, I am still Pat Spearman, and I still represent Senate District 1 in Clark County, and I'm here to present Senate Concurrent Resolution 5 for your consideration. Prejudice is a burden that confuses the past, threatens the future, and renders the present inaccessible. These are the words of the great Maya Angelou. Prejudice has contributed to the creation of systemic racism and structures of racial discrimination that result in generational poverty and perpetuate debilitating economic, educational, and health challenges which disproportionately affect people of color, and challenges that are exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Let me be very clear. Prejudice has contributed to the creation of systemic racism. Let me be clear, I am not calling anyone a racist. I'm talking about a systemic racist system that prevails in this country. And I just need to make that distinction. I don't want anyone to leave to say, I called someone racist. I did not. Senate Concurrent Resolution 5 takes a step towards addressing the systemic racism and structures of racial discrimination and their disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on BIPOC communities in Nevada. Nearly half of Nevada's population is made up of people of color, including people who are Black, Indigenous, Hispanic, Asian, or Pacific Islander, and individuals of more than one racial or ethnic background. Racism, racial and ethnic health disparities, and other inequities have led to a disproportionate negative impact on BIPOC communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. For these reasons and others, during the 32nd special session of the Nevada Legislature, we adopted Senate Concurrent Resolution 1, which declares that systemic racism and structures of racial discrimination constitute a public health crisis. Now, during the 81st session of the Nevada Legislature, we must pass legislation to address the public health crisis. Senate Concurrent Resolution 5 declares that all Nevada residents shall have equal consideration and opportunity under the laws, policies, and practices of this state. Systemic racism and structures of racial discrimination constitute a public health crisis magnified by the disproportionately high impact of COVID-19 on communities of color. Nevada supports local, state, regional, and federal initiatives to understand, address, and dismantle systemic racism and its impact on the delivery of human and social services, economic development, and public safety. And federal funding should be distributed equitably based on the portion of members of a BIPOC community to address issues that disproportionately affect these communities in direct proportion to their disadvantages by individual racial categories. In addition, through this resolution, the Nevada Legislature affirms its commitment to incorporating the subject of systemic racism and structures of racial discrimination that constitute a public health crisis into regular business. I might add, Madam Chair, that one of the committee members, and I applaud her for that, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, brought last session a bill to look at the disparities in maternal mortality among women of color. These are statistics that cannot be denied. These are facts that have been so glaring and staring us in the face that now it is impossible to overlook. There are several bills that are making their way through this legislature that deal with lupus, that deal with childbearing, that deal with high blood pressure, that deal with diabetes, that deal with a number of things. And if you look at those bills, they are all standing on the facts that people in BIPOC communities have suffered disproportionately. Why? Because we are living under a healthcare system and many other systems that were not designed for our success. And this concludes my remarks with this one exception. Today marks the second anniversary of our colleague, Assemblyman Tyrone Thompson, with his passing. And as I've said on previous occasions, we all have touted, and rightfully so, his commitment to education and his commitment to the mentoring program. And yes, those were two of his passions, but also he had a commitment to health and equity in BIPOC communities. This is one of the pieces of legislation that I hope history will remark was an honor to the work that he did before he left us. Minority health and equity. This honors not only his work, but the work of so many others who have fought hard to eliminate these barriers that were created because of systemic racism. There will be some who will say it is not true, and for them I would encourage you to go and look up Henrietta Lacks. There will be some that will say, well, that was then and this is now, but I would encourage you to go and look up excuse me, the video testimony of Dr. Sharon Moore, a medical doctor, studied, and a medical doctor. Did I say she was a medical doctor? Yes, she's a medical doctor, was a medical doctor. And in one of her last videos, talking about her encounter with the healthcare system, although she was a doctor, and knew exactly what needed to be done to treat her so that she would her life could be saved. In one of her last videos, she said they treated her like she was a drug dealer, ignored her, and today that African-American medical doctor is dead because of systemic racism. That's why Senate Concurrent Resolution 5 is so very important. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. And with that, I will open it up if there's anyone in the room that wishes to testify in support of SCR 5. Are you coming forward to, yes, to testify in support, please?
Good afternoon.
You know what? It's amazing how one glance, nonverbal communication, this is why life can't be lived on Zoom. Nonverbal communication, Assemblywoman Dickman, she just looks at me and I can hear her saying, Madam Chair, aren't we going to open it for questions? And so I am sorry. Thank you for that millisecond look at glance that, yeah. So with that, committee members, are there any questions? Not seeing any questions, but appreciate the Assemblywoman calling me out. Now we will open it up for anyone wishing to testify in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Miller and members of the committee. Allison Jenko with Ferrari Public Affairs, representing Dignity Health St. Rose Dominican in support of SCR 5. Health inequities and systemic racism have indeed caused a public health crisis. St. Rose is acting to address systemic inequities experienced by BIPOC and other underserved communities, and reversing the effects of systemic racism requires a long-term commitment. Our first steps include expanding access to care in underserved communities, improving how we track outcomes by race, expanding implicit and unconscious bias training, growing programs that impact the social causes of poor health, and further diversifying our leadership, workforce, and suppliers. One example of that is our 10-year partnership with Morehouse College of Medicine to develop and train more Black physicians. St. Rose pays particularly close attention to the social determinants of health, as oftentimes the social causes of poor health need to be dealt with the same velocity as an acute medical condition. Some of these issues include housing, food insecurity, violence prevention, and access to culturally competent care. Again, thanks to Senator Spearman for moving this concurrent resolution forward, and we vow to be a partner to make sure healthcare is equitable for all, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. With that, not seeing anyone else in the room coming forward, broadcasting, can you please open the line for anyone wishing to testify in support of SCR 5?
To testify in support of SCR 5, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 069, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. This is Andre Wade, ANDREWADE, State Director for Silver State Equality, a statewide LGBTQ civil rights organization, and member of the Nevada Office of Minority Health and Equities Advisory Committee, and Chair of the Governor's Task Force on HIV Modernization. We are speaking to you on behalf of Silver State Equality. I wanted to note those other positions that I hold because they're all interrelated to this bill. Just recently, through the work on HIV modernization, we have a report from the Williams Institute on the disproportionality of arrests and convictions related to Black people, related to HIV criminalization, which of course is related to public health. And so there's a lot going on across the nation, and in Nevada in particular, and a bill like this would do wonders for trying to address the ongoing issues that we face. So we are here in support and urge you all to support as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Chair, there are no more callers in support on SCR 5.
Okay, thank you for that. With that, then I will close the opportunity to testify in support and open it up for anyone wishing to testify in opposition of SCR 5. we don't have anyone here physically in the room, so if you could open up the phone lines, please.
To testify in opposition to SCR 5, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in opposition to SCR 5.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone on the line to testify in neutral of SCR 5?
If you would like to testify in neutral on SCR 5, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in neutral on SCR 5.
Okay, thank you for that. With that, I will close the ability to testify in neutral, and we'll open it back up. Senator Spearman, if you'd like to make any final remarks?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will just say, I want to close with a story that actually is true. My first trip to the South with my mother, I was headed to the water fountain to take a drink at one of the bus stations, and saw a gentleman, a white gentleman, walk past one of the water fountains and spit in it. And I was 7, and I was like, oh my God, no, I don't want to drink out of that. So I went to the next water fountain, and just as I put my hand on the apparatus to turn it and turn the water on, I felt my mother grab me in the back of my dress, and she just yanked me up real fast, and her teeth were clenched, and she's biting her lip, and she's just, what do you want to do? You want to get killed? And I don't know what's going on here. And she starts shaking me, and she's shaking, and she's crying, and she's yelling, and I don't know what happened. And she calmed down, and she said, you're trying to get killed? I said, no, ma'am, I just wanted to get some water. And she said, do you see that sign there? And I looked at it, and she pointed to the sign that said whites only. So I read that, and then she pointed to the other sign, and she said, can you read that? And I said, yes, but I don't know what color red is. I don't know what that means. And she said, it's colored. It's colored. You're in the South now, and whenever you see that sign, you cannot drink out of anything except the sign that says colored. And so I know that there are some people who believe that racism never existed and believe that we still don't have a problem with it today. But that incident is ingrained in my mind, and I was to find out later that my mother was very afraid because of the Emmett Till story. And indeed, she didn't want me to get killed, set on fire, and thrown in a river. And so racism is a public health crisis, and I urge your support of Senate Concurrent Resolution 5. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. And with that, I will close the hearing on SCR 5. We have our final agenda item, which is public comment. We will take up to 30 minutes of public comment. So we have no one physically in the room coming forward. Broadcasting, will you open the line for public comment, please?
If you would like to make public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public comment line is open and working. However, we have no callers at this time.
Okay, we will wait just a moment because I know that we're about a minute off, so we'll give anyone an opportunity who wishes to dial in or is attempting. Okay, has anyone attempted to call in?
If you would like to make public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to make public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, I will close the agenda item for public comment. And again, just want to thank our committee staff and all the members for, again, another wonderful committee. And with that, we have no other business before us. We will hear 2 more bills this Thursday on May 6th. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.